with Jenny Horne, though, taking a look at some of the tech stuff that has been our focus. Again, as long as a few of those big Mag 7 companies are working, we should be in decent shape, and it seems like the analyst community is ready to pile on all that momentum lately.
I mean, like replace NVIDIA with Tesla as far as like point of strength as of late.
That works.
I mean, it does. And I think it's like the momentum shift we always see in Tesla. We've seen this time and time again where right now it's set to open at highs this morning, but it feels like we were so quick to punish Tesla for the first like 3 quarters of this year. And now with the election, I mean, like shares are just ripping on really no fundamental change, which is why maybe I have some caution because I'm like, where was all that pessimism that still exists?
Speculative fervor. So I guess what we've got fresh bullish commentary from Mr. Dan Ives this morning to get us juiced up?
Of course. So Wedbush is Dan Ives, of course, price target of 515 up from, 400. Their bull case, though, they say is 650. And they believe that Donald Trump becoming president is a total game changer for AI and their full driving self vehicles. And they also continue to see that if this tailwind is any stronger or moves even past their base case, they do believe that again, $650 by the end of 2025, 50% upside from where we closed on Friday. Wow. And they also see the launch of the Cybercab robotaxi as the golden goose for Tesla. That's expected to take place in early 2026.
650 for next year?
650 by the end of 2025. So yeah, I guess in a year from now.
Wow.
Previous street high was 421. So this even surpasses, obviously his price target, the street high. It's amazing to me when you look at the coverage on this name because it's so skewed, obviously, since there's that $24 price target, which give it up at this point. That was not the right call. But it is amazing that the average price target right now is $260 a share.
That's a little bit like people are living in denial. So there's a lot of folks that will look at the Dan Ives case and they'll go, 650, oh my gosh, But like, hey, that's the direction it's going up right now. So anybody who's got a price target that's like back here seems kind of silly because, the man is like now the CEO of this company is like the unofficial right-hand man of the incoming president. So obviously that's worth some premium. But to your point, has there been any real fundamental update, especially on the ride-hailing stuff for robo-taxis? Nothing really great for Tesla. More like the competition kind of locking in their roots. So.
I was going to say, you wouldn't know it from, I guess Alphabet had a decent week last week, but like the Waymo self-driving unit, we also are getting more and more clarity on like what Uber will do as far as their full self-driving. So Tesla's been relatively quiet except for all political ties. So sure, if you want to see this as a proxy of like a new administration, but as we know historically, that doesn't necessarily do anything for the market.
Speculative.
It is really, and I think that then you have a risk of like, hey, this valuation has gotten hot. It already was, but now we're at all-time highs as well.
All right, slightly less speculative in the world of like big tech momentum is what happened after the close on Friday, which was the rebalance of the NASDAQ 100. Microstrategy's going in, Michael Saylor's Bitcoin Bank, and then Palantir also. So those are 2 high momentum names that are probably going to get some love this morning.
Yeah, so recent approval for the NASDAQ 100 for Microstrategy. That is, of course, part of that annual reconstitution of the NASDAQ. But this is significant because, of course, it attracts these major ETF investors. You have Qs. You have these various analysts that are saying this could see now some significant institutional investing. Also, some news I think worth mentioning here is that they did, their aggressive acquisition strategy has seen it purchase roughly 21,000 Bitcoin for roughly $2.1 billion as of early December. So that's per the SEC filing. I think that continues to show the way in which this company is just a massive Bitcoin proxy at this point. They now hold roughly over 423,000 Bitcoin, further solidifying themselves as the major player in the crypto market. But I would also say, the crypto conversation is one that's now surpassed like financial interests, where I have friends that are like, should we buy these meme coins?
No, it's back. Yeah, I know.
And I'm like, so here's the thing is like, what does this company do? Do you use these meme coins on a day-to-day basis? Like, what is the utility of all these products that we're buying
sell to somebody for more?
It's another one where I'm like...
That's why they need the Bitcoin balance sheet, the strategic reserve, because if not, they got nothing right now.
there's this like intense feeling of FOMO right now in the crypto world, and that makes me nervous because, again, what do all of these things do? What's the utility in your daily life? It's, again, like the Tesla argument where I'd say you're basically just hoping on easing regulation, but what does that exactly mean? I think that that's a double-edged sword. So you're hoping that the new administration is a friend to crypto. That's obviously been read by the markets, but no fundamental change in this world, except for, at least in the case of MicroStrategy, with hopefully some more institutional investing.
Well, that's where the kind of crypto pseudo fake news borderline truth coverage around what the president said with the strategic reserve. Like, people should go watch the CNBC clip to see his response.
It's not even.
It's the most like, he says yes, but then I don't even. The way Cramer frames it, he says, "Are you going to do like a strategic petroleum-like reserve?" And he says, "Yes, I think so." And then he goes on to say a bunch of unrelated things. Interpret it as you will. But that's where that story gets so important, is because that is the next buyer.
The headline was so.
And then they were spinning out something our guys said as fake news. We had to community notes that because that was getting like millions of views. They were trying to attribute something to Charles Schwab, like these big million account crypto followers just tweeting fake stuff about what we said, which is totally garbage. Last point though, Palantir is in and Supermicro is out. That one's a big like symbolic event too, because Palantir has been so successful, living up to expectations, getting all these big government contracts, and obviously Supermicro has been a disaster. So that was quick in and out for Supermicro.
And I guess what was the most shocking to me is anyone that's followed Supermicro wouldn't be surprised, but why Palantir wasn't already included in that index. I mean, we were so quick to be, I think, team Supermicro. Palantir has shown now consistent profitability. They have these major government contracts. I think that's one of the most. I think it was one of the best performers in the S&P 500 last week, on just the fact that they continue to show real promise in the AI world. And I mean, like, as far as, sure, they're really highly valued on a forward basis, but Palantir continues to impress me if you want to talk like winners in AI in the back half of this year.
Well, there's some real stuff behind the Palantir rally. And more so than Tesla or MicroStrategy, probably.
Yes, and I feel like I have grown up in the markets with Palantir, so I respect that we see now, again.
It's like the coming of age.
Exactly. A more consistent and more mature, again, a profitable, consistent revenue, good guidance. I mean, there's a lot to like with Palantir, which then makes you say, this was obviously the right move here, because you can't have your basically like business leadership falling apart when you're Supermicro. I think that story is going to be hopefully improving, but there's still a lot of question marks.
All right. Adios, Supermicro. Thanks, Jenny. Appreciate that.